Hey, what's up, guys? So let's talk about how to calculate your splits that I've programmed for Saturday. Today's Friday, but it's my Saturday for you guys or whatever. All right, so this is probably going to confuse the shit out of a lot of y'all. I'm going to try to dumb it down and say how it makes sense to me, but it's some math. And I know that most of y'all are competent engineers, but watching y'all calculate the new is always interesting. So we will break it down as best I can. All right, so what's programmed today, it's a little different than I had actually on the thing. I'll change it up here in a minute. I want y'all to do a mile warm-up, and then nice and slow, nice and easy, zone 2, zone 1, just kind of move around a little bit. Once you get past that first mile, then you'll go into 95% of your what your 2 mile 1 minute or 1 mile paces. So let's see. So let's break that down a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your tested 2 mile that we just did. So for example, mine was 14:07. So you're gonna cut that in half. So because it's 2 miles, so you want to try to find what your 1 mile actual pace is for a test. So we're going to take that, cut it in half. For mine, it would be 7 minutes and 4 seconds, right? So it's I ran a 14:07, so then I cut that in half, and it's 7:04, 7 minutes and 4 seconds. So once you find your one mile actual pace, so if you're running and you're watching on your watch, you're looking on your watch, it'll show you what your pace is for a mile pace. It's a good way to pace as you're running to see where you're at. Generally, depending on the type of runner you are, you'll run a little bit faster at the beginning or a little bit slower. Like this last time, there was like a 10-second difference for me, which I wasn't real consistent. That's why I wanted to put in these pace runs. But it was also really windy on the way back. So it was like there's other factors that go into it. Anyway, so once you find what your 1 mile pace actually was from your test, then you're going to take that, and then you're going to calculate what the percentage of that should be. So I have it programmed in for 95%. So you need to find 95% of whatever that 1 mile pace is. So for mine, I have a lot of math on this board. So for mine, it was 4 minutes and 7 seconds was my 2 mile test. I already talked about that. Cut that in half to find what the 1 mile actual pace was, and I averaged a 7 minute 4 second mile. That was my pace. In the running world, you hear people talk about what their mile pace is. That's generally how people do all the way into marathon runs and stuff like that. They want to know what they're running at each mile so they can keep that pace and keep it consistent. All right, so then now with the 7 minutes and 4 seconds, to make it make sense in my head, to make it a little bit easier, I want to break it down into seconds, because you start getting into minutes and seconds individually, it gets kind of quirky. So I broke it down into how many seconds that was. It makes it easier to calculate it whenever you go to the 95% and the 90%. So I took, I already knew how many seconds I had, so it was 4 seconds. So then I took, to find out how many seconds are in 7 minutes, I took 7 minutes, I multiplied it by 60 seconds. So then that tells me how many seconds are in those minutes. So then I had to add the other 4 seconds into it. So 7 times 60 was 420, and then I added the extra 4 seconds. So to slow it down and repeat it a little bit, I had a 14 minute, 7 second, 2 mile test. I cut that in half, and it gave me a 7 minute, 4 second, 1 mile pace. Now, out of that 7 minutes and 4 seconds, I needed to know how many total seconds that was. I multiplied the 7 minutes by 60, because it's 60 seconds in a minute, and then I added the 4 seconds in for the extra. So it came out to 424 seconds is what it came out to. Now I need to find out what 95% of that is. So 4 minutes or 424 seconds times 0.95. So 0.95 is your percentage, right? So for all y'all out there that know how to do tips properly and all that stuff, you're not a piece of shit. You can multiply whatever your tab is times 0.25 or 0.30, or if you get really shitty service, point whatever, 20, whatever you people tip. So I use that in my head. This is what makes sense to me. So 424 seconds times 0.95, which is 95%, and that came out to 402 seconds. So that's 95% of 424 seconds is 402 seconds. All right. Then all I did was I took 402 and then I divided that by 60. So dividing that by 60 gave me 6.7. So that's 6 minutes, but 0.7 of a minute. So you have to figure out what 0.7 of a minute is. You know, there's 60 seconds on 100 seconds in a minute. So then you have to take 0.7 and multiply that by 60. So then that gave me 42 seconds. I really feel like I'm probably losing you guys right now. But so then that gave me 42 seconds. So then my 95% of my 1 mile split is going to be 4 minutes and 42 seconds. Yeah, so we'll see who picked up on that or how I explained it. If it made any sense, message me on the side. I can probably do your math for you and help you out. I'll try to put a little calculator like as it goes down. As if I show you this, it's going to confuse the hell out of you because I have terrible handwriting. So maybe I'll fuck it. I'll type it out on a message whenever I drop this in there, and then you can just plug in your 2 mile test, and then hopefully it'll come out where you can calculate it pretty good. But hopefully it'll make sense. So right now I'm going to go run my splits at my 95% is I'm going to be aiming for a 6 minute 42 second 1 mile as I'm running. So as I'm running, I'm going to be watching my watch. And I'm going to be looking at my watch, and I'm going to be trying to keep it into the around 6:42 is what my pace is going to be for my 95% of my 1 mile. And then after I get done with that, I'm going to rest 2 minutes, and then I'm going to hit another mile at 90%, and that's going to be at a 6 minute 24 second. All right. I told you guys we were going to get more technical with running. This is a good way to break it down and to actually hit those splits exactly where you want to be. Hopefully you guys aren't lazy with this. Some of y'all are just going to watch this video and be like, oh, fuck all that math. I'm not going to do all this shit. Just hit me up on the side. I'll run the calculations for you. I'll tell you what you need to do. There's not a whole lot of y'all left, but to be able to progress into this programming, then you're going to need to start calculating all this different stuff and understanding it, especially if you're trying to progress in running. I know a few of y'all are really trying to get better at running. So getting these calculations in there will allow you to run these faster splits, and it'll make your longer runs a whole lot better because you're actually going to be pushing it into a very specific amount. So once you start getting it at 95% and then 90%, and then we can start getting a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and then we'll start messing around with it. Hopefully this doesn't jack you guys up. Like I said, hit me up in the comments, and then if it's just you're completely lost, then I'll break it down and I'll tell you exactly what the splits you need to do. But please don't just ignore this and just go run 3 miles or whatever. Try to actually hit these programs exactly how they are and see how they're gonna actually benefit you later on. All right, guys. Well, good luck with all that.